Many would claim that Eric Sproat is among the greats of filmmaking, but surely his unique talents have remained neglected for too long. Sproat's work is like this potato, hidden underground for most of its life, but delicious when dug up and fried. And here at the Electric Cinema, Portobello Road, they are doing just that. Sproat was born at the beginning of the century in Christleton, Cheshire. He was the son of prosperous merchant Maurice Sproat, whose wife Eleanor was also well-to-do. From a very early age, he developed a tendency to play with machinery, though often failing to understand its nature. At the age of only 6, having already experimented with still photography, he made the assertion that moving pictures are impossible. But he was quickly convinced, mysteriously obtained an early movie camera, and began experimenting at once with Eunice, his baby sister. Thus began the famous baby films. Baby swallows a teaspoon must be followed by Baby's hospital visit, and the climactic Baby tries to change a light bulb in the bath. His father confiscated the camera before shooting on Baby's funeral could begin. He was sent away to the notorious Jesuit public school Stonyhurst, where his one film, Opium Smoking in Upper Syntax, was banned. After an undistinguished schooling, he shot his first drama, Rescued by a Ginger, heavily criticised at the time as a poor copy of Hepworth's Rescued by Rover. Sproat exiled himself to Paris and was immediately attracted by the Dadaists. He filmed Bébé essaie à tirer un fusil, but had to return to Britain when his parents were killed in an early train crash. Their deaths did, however, provide him with enough money to shoot his first 5-reeler. This first festival of his works has been the child of many hands, not least one of the most forgotten members of any good cinema, the projectionist. This is Chester Dent. He's rewinding the only known available print of Sproat's 1924 Life of Queen Victoria, the first film he made on his return to England with the money his parents left him. Chester, what sort of condition is this print in?
Not bad.
But you're confident it'll run through the projector all right?
Should do.
When this film was premiered in 1924, it was notable for its use of revolutionary multi-screen techniques, and also for the special effects, especially in the Balmoral sequence, the storm sequence, when the audience were drenched with buckets of water. Will you be repeating this process on this occasion?
Not likely. Shouldn't say.
And isn't it true that the film has only had one single screening prior to this date?
It's not surprising with buckets of water, is it?
Between 1925 and 29, Sproat worked with the great eccentric D.D. Clutterbuck, producing 2 and 3 reelers of fetishistic subjects, often banned, such as Smelling Socks and Girl Guides of 1929, released at the same time as The Jazz Singer.
You made me love you. I didn't want
Sproat initially rejected the idea of sound movies, but was amongst the first to jump on the bandwagon, almost literally, with his film The Folk Singer. One of the extras in this film was Kate Mensch, notorious at that time for her band of devoted lovers. She was bowled over by Sproat's charm, his straight talking, and not least by his bicycle. A whirlwind courtship outside the Alhambra Tooting led to marriage and a string of parts for Kate in his films. Sproat was by this time violently jealous of one of his contemporaries, Hitchcock, arguing that no one from a lower class of Catholic school could be trusted. But while Hitchcock prospered, Sproat could only manage work like Quartered. Sproat was forced into nondescript documentaries. He refused to follow Dickinson and Asquith into the new film union ACT, believing that such a union could only last a matter of months. His was the first company to be banned. In 1938, Sproat thought he had found salvation when he was offered an amazing 5-picture contract by Hiram B. Tribick, an American producer impressed by Sproat's use of women rugger players. But war was to intervene, and Sproat's early period had come to an end. For an assessment of those early years, who better to ask than the festival's organiser, Andrew McCarthy? Andrew, what is your estimation of the worth of the early films?
Compared to the films he made in very rapid succession after the war, not all that much.
Now, we know that he was able to finance his first films as a result of opening a clothing stall after the war.
Yeah, that was really mysterious. Of course, he did have experience of clothing in the army during the war.
Ah, yes, you mean his time issuing vests. He was a stores officer in Dalston.
Yeah, unlike Powell and Capra, he wasn't allowed to make propaganda films during the war, which was quite unusual.
Yes, indeed. The first film made after the war was Dwindling, wasn't it?
Yeah, that involved clothing as well.
But now we'd see that as a film about castration.
Yeah, that's really quite surprising, because at the time it was taken as a perfectly straight story about an imprisoned U-boat captain who complained about his trousers being too tight.
But it was a great success, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a very, very great success, and that led to a whole series of films, all starring Kate Mensch, such as Hiccups of Silas Crabtree and Frustrations and 2 or 3 more. And all the crews remembered it as a very, very enjoyable time.
Why do you think that was?
Oh, the location catering, definitely.
I see. What then would you say his overall contribution to the cinema was?
The greatest contribution, certainly amongst the surviving work, is probably St. Augustine, because of the unusual narrative forms involved. The films really have to be examined for the short sequences which are contained in longer films, i.e., overall, you can't come along and expect to think that you're going to see great action-packed movies. You've got to look for the short sequences within those movies.
Such as Ladies Playing Rugby, for example?
Yes, the ladies playing rugby into the Thames, but I wish people wouldn't keep bringing that up. Everybody would think it was the only thing he did in British cinema.
Genius or not, his work was popular during the 40s and his private life a success. Twins were born, named Paul and Paul, to avoid confusion. Films such as Eel Man rocked a nation.
You see, you came to me like a little stray kitten. And instead of turning you out into the world starved, I took you in, gave you milk, put a ribbon round your neck. And while I was treating you like a kitten, somehow you crept into my heart.